Hi everyone. Tonight I've got Em. Hello Em, how are you?
I'm good, Sarah. Thank you for having me.
Yep. I'm so excited to have you on Sarah Knows Support Workers. The great thing about this podcast is we get to explore the people in this sector and what they do and why they do it. And you've got a bit of a juicy story and I can't wait to dig into if you're ready.
I'm ready when you are.
All right, Emily, you're very lucky when it comes to having a name as a provider because you got a really good name, which I thought was kind of like I would have thought like back then it would have been really hard to get that name. You've got your best support. How did you nail that and how did you get that? Because I'm sure there would have been people out there dying to have that.
It actually came to me from a support coordinator that I was working with before I created Your Best Support. So when I was in the, realm of do I, don't I, a support coordinator said, wouldn't it be great if you called it something like Your Best Support? Because at the time, my name was Emily Best. So that's it literally was perfect. It
Yes.
fits us to a T. It still does now. But yeah, it was just fate that was the beginning.
What were you doing before your best support?
Lots of things.
Yeah.
Right before Your Best Support, I was working as a support coordinator in a regional town, New South Wales.
And what made you go, right, I reckon I could give this NDIS business a bit of a crack and go out and do it myself?
Probably a number of things, COVID mainly. And a lot of people started during COVID. A lot of people, in that time of unknown went without support. And I was just in a really good space where I had 15 years of direct support with both intellectual disabilities, well, intellectual, physical, and psychosocial disability. So essentially, I was seeing there was so much need that wasn't being met because of COVID. And I chucked my hat into the wind and I was servicing people within a 2.5 to 3 hour region of where I was living, just doing really just recovery coaching. I did a lot of cooking. I turned my kitchen to this, I don't know, mass production of food services. A lot of people weren't able to access services to go to do shopping. They weren't able to access services to come into their home. So I essentially met that need during COVID, and that's how it all sort of came to be.
So it's kind of an accident.
Definitely. I did not expect to still be going 5 years later and as a registered provider. I literally thought I would coast through COVID and go back to support coordination. That was the original plan.
Before support coordination, were you a support worker?
Yes. I have had been a support coordinator, a support worker since 18. It's all I've done. I don't know anything else.
We must be similar in age.
I turned 30. I turned 38 this year.
Yeah, it's so funny because I actually, because of COVID, I unofficially take a year off. So I always think I'm younger than what I tell people. But
That
it's,
is, I'm going to take that.
yep. But the wild thing about COVID is it did expand a lot of people's opportunity to open businesses and it really put a lot of people in a different direction than ever before. So from support work, what got you into support coordination?
I was in Sydney working um, two jobs. I was working in a day program. I absolutely adore the day program. I love it. Just managing family life and at the time, I'd not long had my youngest child, and I was doing in supported independent living homes. And I accidentally found this wonderful woman through a friend of mine, and she said, I want you on my team. I know you've got these two jobs. Come and work for me, please. So again, I threw my hat into the wind. I went with her, and then probably about 4 months after working as her support worker, I actually approached her to do some training for behavioral therapy. And that was I was set. That's where I wanted to be. And she said, you've got too much for behavior therapy. Like, yes, you will be amazing at it. I can see you meeting need, but to make a bigger impact, come and be a support coordinator. And at the time, the NDIS was still brand new. I didn't even know what a support coordinator was really. And yeah, that she trained me how to be a support coordinator. And then from there, I managed her team regionally. And then I wore two hats, regional service manager and support coordinator. And yeah, that's sort of how that all came to be. That was my introduction to support coordination and to senior management very quickly.
That's a lot of support workers' stories, to be honest with you. They start as a support worker and then they branch out because can I work in people with behavior or can I be a support coordinator? And they really do expand themselves that way because I can see why, like, I can see why you went certain paths, and
Yeah.
I do recall, and people find this really wild. But once upon a time, before the NDIS, support workers, we used to have to write people's behavior support plans. There were no practitioners, there were nobody in place, and we had to write them. So that means that we upskilled a lot easier, and we had a lot more skills than before because the expectations were there.
Exactly. Even I remember working in group homes, the expectation of the support workers to manage homes without having that, official title of, house manager. You had a house manager that sat in the office. The staff ran the day to day, the staff ran the budgets, the staff did everything. So it was really easy then to upskill and transition into positions now. And I feel like the way the space is now, it might make it a little bit more difficult for some people to transition higher because those skills are so set inside of roles.
And those skills are taken to other roles, you're right. And I feel like for me, I had the best opportunity to grow my career from support work into leadership roles.
Absolutely. Honestly, I think that the most value that you get to be able to give back these days is when you've got experience. And, there's amazing people doing great things that have come in from different industries, but to have that serious impact where they, take impact with knowledge and intentional knowledge, that's where I think that a lot of people are very, very lucky to be able to upskill and grow when they've got that, ground level sort of
Yep.
feel in the space. Yeah.
Well, because you've had a variety and you got to trial different things throughout your career, what does person centered support mean to you in real life?
Oh, that is so loaded. Look, I think person-centered support it's a one-on-one thing. It's how the person interprets the way they get their own support, the way that they're able to create their support flexibly, the way that the support impacts on them individually. You can have so many people with the same sort of diagnosis or be on the same spectrum. Every one person has that one support that's tailor made for them and with them, not for them to be delivered to them.
Yeah. I For you, like I know you were talking that at one point you worked in day services, you've worked one-to-ones to support coordination. Do you believe that is like the reason why as a support coordinator now, when you see somebody's plan come in, that you're able to pick it apart and pull it apart how this person can be best served?
Yeah, I do. And I think again, with having such depth of industry knowledge, standing, first of all, what is a goal? Standing, how does that goal relate to that person? Does that person even understand what that goal means to them? When we get the goals, and I see 7 or 8 goals now that are coming through, and they're saying, well, how do I do this? You go into full task analysis and break it down and understanding the depth of how to get to that end goal. Again, it comes back to having that knowledge of being able to work flexibly, be able to pivot where you need to, have really good understanding and knowledge of services and accessibility and what those goals are going to, achieve for that person in the end.
So, with your business, you do parts of support coordination. How many people do you provide support coordination to?
I've got a very small group.
No, I love small. Don't. Some people, sometimes I do these interviews, I'm like, oh my God, I've got this, like, and really downplay it. No, don't, because it's about quality
It
over
is, it
quantity.
is. Which is the reason why I've got a small groups. Inside of your best support, I obviously sit at the very top, and we've got direct supports, and I've got staff and a management team, but I'm the only support coordinator. So intentionally, I've only got 12 participants that I do support coordination for.
Is that because
Three
you
of
love it?
I do. I do love it. Three of which have followed me continuously. One for 8 years now, and then two others that have sort of just clung on because they just get really great support. I'm not necessarily a fan of it, but they know that when they call, they're going to get that outcome. But yeah, I mean, support coordination, I've got a spot for it. And it's changing, and I've seen the way that it's changing, and I've seen the way that the industry has changed along with support coordination. I like to think that I've got a little bit of that old school mentality when it comes to support coordination, which I think is really wonderful to have still.
Do you feel like a support coordinator, like elder? Because we're millennial elders, but like, do you feel like that?
Yeah, yeah, sometimes I feel like I say to people when I first started support coordination, and I think, geez, that's my grandma saying when I was your age. But it's changed, it's evolved, it's become more tangible with people. It's become quite a sort of, again, a person-centered thing where when I started support coordination, we were quite limited to how we could support people, but then providers were also limited on how they worked with us as well. And we sort of had that underlying sort of management space of support coordination where now it's more flexible and it's more relaxed. But yeah, I still sort of have that old school, give me your service agreements, we'll send it through to the plan manager, we'll check the budget, we're running a budget. We still have all of those really good structures in place now.
Has changed dramatically.
Mm.
Yep, 100%. Where it was to where it is now, but also, like, I was talking to somebody the other day about churn rates, that support worker churn rates are actually quite high, but so are support coordinator churn rates as well. And I'm gonna make an assumption. I'm gonna assume that the people that have stayed with you is because you've been so consistent.
I think consistency is very important, but I think it also comes back to how we apply our knowledge to the people that we service as well. It's really great for people to understand that if this is not working, go and explore, go and find other providers. Not one provider is going to be the right person for everybody. However, when you sort of go from provider to provider to provider, it's the same with support workers. You lose information, you lose important connections that you need to be maintaining with your providers. You lose that faith in the system where I have a saying, like, we dig our heels in, we dig deep, and we sort of stand firm because consistency is so important. And in such an unknown space, the most reliable thing that we can provide is consistency. Yeah, it's really important to maintain, even on a shitty day, just dig deep. Today might not be the day that we're going to have that conversation. We'll pick it up again tomorrow. You don't just be like, well, today you really gave me the shits, I'm firing you. Hang on, we'll reassess. And then if it's not working, then we'll look at other options. But it's important that that rapport is built. Yeah.
So, besides support coordination, you also do other things in your business. What other stuff do you do?
We're a tailor-made service to people, and we focus mainly on upskilling in home and in the community where the participants are wanting to maintain achieving goals and they're wanting to maintain current skills. Or I've actually been having a lot of talks lately about trying to get people back to some sort of baseline before NDA. We conversations, big ones. Primarily, we've got a lot of participants with psychosocial disabilities, and they're really important. But I think that for so long, they've just been put in this sort of space as everybody else. They sort of just go through the motions and they keep it going, where now I'm having conversations with people about not wanting it, not needing it, moving away from it, redefining how supports are looking for them to get them off it. Where do you go from here? How do you achieve that? Some people have been on the NDIS now for 9 years and they are sort of like, well, where do I go? When does this end? How do I get back to? So yeah, we're moving into a space now where we're actually starting to have realistic plans and goals in place where in 2 years, maybe there's not going to be an NDIS plan for some people. And if it is, well, then we'll keep on reassessing. But yeah, so we're just that tailor made service. We do a one on one employment service where we break down communication, learning, disability, find out what their interests are. And we literally just put them in a real world scenario, just as if you or I were looking at getting a new job, and we just support them through the process.
You brought up something that some people are struggling with at the moment, the idea that people may not be on the NDIS. And I do recall at this millennial elder, when the NDIS came through, that the aim was never to keep people in it. It was to
Mm.
expand people's horizons, to make sure that they were independent as possible, so they could live independently as possible, not keep them. Have you found that when you've been talking about this, you've come across a bit of like pushback?
Not pushback, but it's definitely taboo conversation still, I suppose. I'll go back to that old school support coordinator in me. Remember, once upon a time, support coordination wasn't supposed to be for everybody forever. And, one day you wouldn't need a support coordinator. I love that philosophy. I love that sort of approach that, again, this is what the scheme was meant to be for. People needed some support short term, and we needed to, upskill them a little bit and get them to where they need to be. So that's what we do. They're the conversations that I have with 95% of people, and it kind of blows their mind that these are the conversations.
For me, that was the norm. Like, that was what was expected as even prior to the NDIS, is to get people into community. So when
Mhm.
the Mark Butler came out and said that we're going to spend 2 million, was it 200 million on community, like neighborhood houses, and footy clubs, and all
Yeah.
that stuff, that was what we were always intended to do. So it
Mhm.
wasn't anything that was new or outrageous.
Yeah. No, you're exactly right. And I think that missing key points about keeping people in the momentum of moving forward in life, that's where we all need to be. We need to be all moving forward and looking at, better things, because everybody's got the capacity to learn or, get back to where they were a few years ago. And I think everybody needs to be sort of working and honestly, intentionally working with that momentum of moving forward for people.
It got really, like, fried for a bit, and I don't know whether it is because the NDIS just exploded so quickly. So a lot of people that had done before the NDIS, that had those skill sets, they're the ones like you and I right now in businesses, directing, doing things outside, not at that base level of being a support worker, to support the support worker, to mentor them through that. Because you've got a team of support workers, so, as a provider now, you have this meant like you talk about networking people into community, going back to skill sets. How do you support workers to have these type of skill sets to support people to be as independent as possible?
In my team, we have got regular meetings that we run. We obviously have got the goals in place that the teams see directly in our systems. But it's just a part of our everyday discussion that we have. We have the discussions with the participants themselves. They've got their expectations on what they expect from us. And vice versa, it's about having that transparent conversation around service delivery and how they receive and accept the support. When I go through recruitment and I sit down with the people who I interview, it's already part of our culture, the skill set is there. And yeah, just talking to everyone. And nearly every conversation we have these days is about moving people on, getting people ready. And I've been talking about it as a business owner now for 8 years or 5 years, but it's conversation it's happening. We need to have people ready for changes. And if, as providers, it's our responsibility to be getting people ready.
It doesn't seem to bother or phase you, which is a fantastic thing to hear. Like, it's actually it's a relief
Yeah.
because that was always what was intended.
And look, I think that if you were a part of the original process, the handover of the ADAC funding, and you were a part of I wasn't directly a part of the rollout, but I was in the industry. So I saw the changes. I was a part of the conversation with participants. I already knew what the expectations were for the scheme. So it's sort of ingrained already. I mean, yeah, being in the sector for nearly 20 years has also had such a large impact as well.
Now, I'm a sucker for a story.
Go for it.
Yep, I am. With your business and how it runs, can you give me, without disclosing anyone's names, please don't do that. Can you tell me a story about a participant win?
Yeah, I can. And this is an ongoing win for me. So I've had one participant in particular for 8 years. He was one of my first complex sort of support participants. And he just had already such a shitty run with the system, providers making promises that they couldn't and shouldn't have delivered on, his expectations still following through. I was green to support coordination when I got him. And one of our first conversations was just over the phone, and he said to me, "Oh, you're nothing but a fucking suit sitting behind a desk." And that's how we got started off. And again, I just had that dig deep. He needed somebody to understand his story and hear him, understand how he needs services to work for him. He was, and still kind of is, into electronics, no internet banking, everything is still you go to the post office. It has taken me a really long time, but he has an email. He emails me now, and he does electronic signatures, which is amazing. And he's taking photos and letting me post them on social media. And he's actually talking to me about setting up electric and gas accounts. What? Is this it's taken 8 years, but, something so small like that for somebody, if he had have gone through providers, his faith in the system would have stayed. Exactly. And, that, there's lots of big wins. But for him to be connected, being a bit of an older gentleman, but being connected and moving with the time, that is just, I'll take that win.
100%.
I would take that.
I've had a participant very similar, and it
Yeah.
does it's a long build
Mhm.
and support, but
Yeah.
it can be done, and it is that consistency and, holding, like you said, holding your ground and
Mhm.
supporting him the whole way through. It
Yeah.
isn't easy, it is definitely challenging at the best of times, but God, it's what an outcome. To be able to email, you got further than I did.
Yeah. Look, I didn't actually ever think we would get this far. Mind you, I created the email address for him about 3.5 years ago. And it was this year he decided he was going to send me an email. We went and had a coffee and he said, "Oh, I have something to tell you." I'm like, "Oh, is this the day you're going to fire me?" Like, is this the day you found somebody else? He's like, "I'm going to send you an email." I was like, "What?" It genuinely went through a whole process of like, "Did you just say those words?" And he's like, "Yep, I'm going to send you an email and then I want you to send me a service agreement so I can sign it." It was honestly, I was in shock, but he's doing it now. And I've even got providers emailing him now, and he still emails me and calls me, and he has a rant about the internet. And I'm like, "Yep, this is welcome to the real world."
You know what find that's really cool about what you do as well? Because you do the one-to-one supports and you break that down. Don't mind. You said about communication, and do you do communication aids or do you build them? Like, how does it work? Because a few people would be listening to this podcast wanting to be inspired of what they could do differently.
Communication, it's so powerful, right? Like if you can't communicate, you're already not doing what you need to do as a provider or as a person trying to have an interaction with another. We learn essentially people's communication and then we adapt to their communication. So obviously, us being able to transfer our knowledge onto somebody else, that's really helpful. But it's more helpful for us to learn theirs and us to have that knowledge to be able to pass on and educate. You know, we've already got it. We just need to then share it. And it's a lot easier for us to learn somebody's finger signs or different sorts of vocal.
Oh,
It's right. Or worked in a day program when I was much younger, and one of the criterias was they had to be either hearing or vision impaired. So very early on, I learnt keyword sign language. Not the greatest. Definitely need a refresher. However, you know, a lot of people I learnt really early on had their own adapted sign language, which was really hard because nobody understood what they were saying. So for us to learn what they were saying, obviously we had to learn that first and then teach them how to then correctly sign back. So they had their adapted sign, which was amazing, but then to have efficient communication back, you know, you would acknowledge, but then be like, well, this is the right way. And then I think I've just been really lucky with where I've been, and it's always been about learning and educating. So yeah, it's just about us learning their style and then, you know, then we just work with it.
I like the fact that they've created their own slang.
Mhm.
It reminds me of so many memories that I've had. So, I too, back in my heyday, was in a group program, and on the weekend, I remember I was like at Coles, and I was just doing my grocery shop as normal. And then the person, like, I could hear, but they didn't use words, they used sounds. So I was like, "Oh, that's so and so." And the next, oh, they're not happy.
Yeah.
Like, oh, it's
Yeah.
crazy what you can learn because you are really adapting to somebody else's communication style and
Mm.
taking it on board because they've already predicted it. Oh, God, I love that stuff. Oh, do you gonna get me like this could be like a whole podcast and a
Go
half
for it.
or where I talk about communication and how important it is and what we learn from it.
I think originally communication is probably where I wanted to sort of move around in, especially in like the behavioral therapy space. You know, behavior is communication. Behavior is somebody not being heard initially, and then you go through the escalations. You know, I mean, when I'm not heard, I definitely have got levels. My whole family can tell you my levels, you know. It's not aggressive or anything, but, you know, behavior is communication and how it's interpreted. But then, you know, it's about learning to deliver what you're trying to communicate in that safe space as well. You know, communication is fundamental, and if you're not getting it right from the beginning, I'd be pissed off too.
Yes. Yes, 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 yes. Yes, you've got me. You know what I find, like, that I've always said? So at previous times I had oversaw a large amount of support workers, and one of the things that I was very good at doing is updating a CRM to have
Mm.
all the information. But what I found sometimes with the information in the CRM is that you might have had somebody for 10 years and it has 10 years of somebody's life. A support worker will read that and go, "Oh no, there's a possibility that this might happen." And to explain to somebody, "Well, no, that was like, that was 5 years ago, moved on. They're at this point and they're doing these type of communication that we really want and have that." Have you found that, because you sound like a systems person as well, that the data that we collect and then how we portray that to our support workers to grow and learn that that might be a possibility if their, verbal cues are missed?
Yeah, your CRM and the information that your staff get is essential to your staff being able to deliver support. I'm quite lucky with being a smaller provider. I'm generally the first point of contact for every participant and every staff person. So we're able to really get a good understanding of who the people are that we're supporting and then updating their information. I give that to the staff. I let the staff who work with the participants, we've got our base of a client profile, support plans, communication, but I don't work with them every day. I get a really important opportunity to meet them initially and get inundated with information that I have to process into a system. But the team is so fundamentally important to that. And then, we've got our 12 monthly check ins. If things aren't working, how do we reassess? But long term, maintaining that communication profile or that person's profile, that's important to maintain previously. So, you've got your updated and then you've got prior to, and this and this has led to. But yeah, it's hard to maintain having that efficient information. But then, when does that 10-year ago behavior become no longer relevant?
When do you get rid of it? Is it safe to
Exactly.
remove it?
Exactly.
When is it safe?
So
Like, it's yeah.
having it for the sake of knowing it and being able to refer back to it, yes. But just changing the way your systems work for each participant. It comes back to that person-centered approach. If it's no longer relevant, update your system. Don't delete it. Just have a current profile done. Get your staff to do it because the staff are the ones working, going to the appointments. They're in there doing the nitty-gritty stuff.
I love it because it's because we hear what their side of how it looks, and because what I think at times a person does routine-wise is completely different to what they're actually doing, so it's making sure that it's current.
Exactly. Back to what we were saying before, when we were working in group homes and day programs, we would automatically just do it anyway. Our managers weren't doing it. Our managers were, I don't know, doing all their other stuff, right?
It was a wild time.
I had a manager who sat at a desk for 8 hours a day and she just told everybody what to do. And it was like, okay, we just did it. So I think having that responsibility ingrained through the systems and through the companies that I worked in, giving the staff the responsibility, that's upskilling them as well. That's giving them
Ownership.
the opportunity to grow their skill sets.
Now, I've had this chat with somebody the other day, which I'm curious to have your take. When we open a business, everyone's like, "Oh, you got to be in a business, but you shouldn't be working in your business. You'd be working out of it." And I was talking to a owner the other day going, "Oh, stuff that. I love working in it. That's why I did it. I didn't open this business to be on the outside. I want to get my hands in the thick of it." I feel like you're somebody that likes to be in the thick of it. Is that a bad assumption?
No, it's definitely not a bad assumption. Look, I think, you know, every business needs to run how they want it to run. To be an efficient business provider in this space, you can't be detached from the people that you're working with. You can't have that hierarchy of, I've just got staff, they'll go do it. Y- I think you lose like a really important human factor if you're not going to get in and do the early morning shower shifts or go and do the shifts with the 2 to 1s, like, what are you doing if that's not what you're doing, like, really? And people are gonna probably hate me for it, but guys, we're working with participants who are people, like, get out of your office and know your participants, know your staff, get in the thick of it.
You know what I thought was wild? The other day, so I interviewed the CEO of Higher Up. I found out he does support work to ensure that he knows what it's like to be a support worker. And I was like, "Oh, you're doing like undercover boss? Like, he's like, no, like, this is legit. This is part of my company,
Yeah,
like the
yeah,
part of the company that I'm a CEO for, that I have to be in the thick of it or else I
yeah,
lose sight."
yeah.
Oh, wow.
I'm actually doing support shifts tomorrow. I'm driving 2 hours to go and cover a full day of support shifts because you need to. You need to have that reality, but it gives the participants autonomy to have an uncomfortable conversation if they need to talk about things. It's hard to talk when a support worker's around, it's hard to talk while you're by yourself. I have found out so much about my staff just going and doing supports and just having those conversations. And I'm like, okay, like maybe we need to sort of just fine tune that a little bit, like that's really
Yeah.
great. But,
Look, I did the same thing. I agree with you because you have to
yeah,
turn up and be present. It's
yeah,
not something that you can do over a Zoom. It is something that you've got to go to somebody's house, have those conversations continuously.
most definitely. Yeah. And it just, I'll say to everyone, I'm a support worker.
Love a support
I'm a
worker.
support worker.
Well, like when people talk about this, there's nothing, this is a profession and a half. Like it is one of the best jobs I've ever had, being a support
Yeah.
worker.
I talk to my girls all the time, my staff, and they say I'm just a support worker. I'm like, hold on, hold
Whoa.
on, hold on. Like, whoa, just a support worker. I'm like, what are you doing? You
Don't
guys are,
downgrade this.
yeah, exactly right. Like, you guys are the absolute glue that holds these people together, like, throw that word just out the window. You are a support worker. You are the goddamn show up of every day. You are the good day, the bad day, the fuck off of all days. You are there. And I think that's why the team that I have is so great because inside of those conversations, it's very empowering when you take away just and you understand the depth and the complexity of the roles because we take it for granted of what we do. It's not just a job. You change people's lives. But if you weren't there,
Things go
right?
kaput. Like it's yes. I used to support a fella that would wait at the front door and for you. And then it was the whole entire, they'll talk about it, and it was only like a 2 hour support, right? So you think only 2 hours support, but their whole week was talking about me
Uh-huh.
to
Uh-huh.
the weekend, get to the set day, and waiting at the door for me to turn up. I mean, what an impact you're having on somebody's life. And if you think about the churn rate of support workers and how
Yeah.
many they have, if you can have an impact on somebody and that they remember, yeah, still contact today,
Yeah.
if they can remember you for that long and have fantastic memories, what an impact.
When I was 19 and I did my Cert 4 in disability, and this was well and truly long before the NDIS was even a thought process. My trainer then let me know that each person with a disability who receives support at that point in time had 35 people as a support worker in their life. And I thought, that's a lot, like 35 people, 35 relationships built and broken, 35 people seeing you stuck as in the shower, 35 people not screwing up your medication or your meal plan. Like that's a lot, like, and
That
I
that
don't think that sinks into a lot of people when they come into support work. I talk about when we hire casually, it's the industry, but we hire for permanent shifts. We hire with the discussion. And I often will say that to people as well, the impact that we have, it has to have meaning. It has to have longevity because this person, I mean, if they've been in if they've been scheme and in this funded space, 2 or 300 people is not unrealistic to think that somebody's had to teach how to
It's more.
talk
It's
to
actually
them
sorry.
all over
I
again.
it is higher than that, and if you've got a
Yeah.
somebody with complex communication, somebody that is physical disability, it's around 6,000 plus, and I'm going off a statistic that I heard probably like 7, 8 years ago. It'd
Yeah,
be
right.
higher,
Yeah.
higher. That's thousands of people seeing, like you said, naked in the shower.
Exactly. And that's where, consistency and digging deep, from both sides, like, both sides of the table have to take accountability and responsibility here. But, digging deep and being consistent, it is so important. And it's so important beyond the depths of just showing up and going shopping. It's,
More than shopping, and then
yeah,
when somebody says
exactly.
that to me, it's actually a breakdown of,
Yeah.
like, to get to a location, when you're at the location, pulling out your wallet, trying to figure out if you've got enough cash or not, like,
Mm.
there's a lot to it, and then, like, I don't know you, but I did a lot of work locally, and it felt like at times that I was, like, with this, like, celebrity. I'll be
Um,
walking down the street or the supermarket with this person, and they know everybody. So, if and I think this is a wild part with support work, right, is if they already know everybody, the likelihood of you doing something wrong and getting caught is so high.
oh,
Why
yeah.
bother?
Yeah.
Why? Like,
Yeah.
I find it, when people talk about, "Oh, support workers are on their phones," and, like, I hear all that type of stuff, and then I think to myself, "Why?" Because you're gonna get, like, what's the point of it? You will get caught. It's not a matter of if, it's really when, because they know everyone.
Exactly. And especially when they've been in the community for so long. They know everyone.
Yes, they are your biggest marketers as well, because they, been in the community for so long. So, sorry, I got a little bit off topic with some of
That's
our
okay.
questions.
That's all right.
What do you hope people feel when people enter into your service, your best support? How do you hope they feel?
And participants or
I
staff?
will go both. Why not?
Look, I think we actually are doing a survey at the moment because we're coming through into our midterm. I think a lot of the feedback that we get is that they're actually heard and their requests are met. If they're not happy, we fix it. If they need something, it's delivered. Being accountable to participants and to staff, that's sort of our main thing. And that's what I continually to strive to do. Everybody needs an individual approach, staff also. So being able to be flexible, being heard, and actually having the services met that are intended is so important.
Now, you guys are from Canberra?
We originally started in Young.
Where's that? Sorry. I'm not geographically
You are
placed
not, yeah,
at the best
okay.
of times, okay?
Yeah. So Young is just on 2 hours from Canberra. It's considered regional New South Wales. It's like a cherry capital of something. I mean, cherries are a huge thing there. So they have like a cherry festival and everything. But yeah, that's where we started, Young.
So, how long ago did you move from there to Canberra?
Well, that was like nearly 4 years ago now.
Good move?
Best move ever. I love Young. It's the town that like people don't want to leave. It's a very welcoming town. It's very family. There's a lot of independent business. I think I was just too big for Young. I was a Sydney girl. I'm very, very different. I am a shitstorm naturally. So coming to Canberra, I can have the impact that I intend to have, and I can spread it and I can share it and I can grow and learn on it as well. I learn something new every day. And as much as I love Young, that learning is just, it's not there.
You know what? You be careful of those small towns. I tell you, they talk. And
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think
they
a lot
do.
of like, I did a lot of regional work out of, Melbourne, like regional and some a little bit rural, like very little, but they're small towns. So if you're a provider in a small town, you wanna be a very good one. because you're
Yeah,
known.
yeah. So we don't advertise for participants over in Young, obviously, because it's pretty well covered over there. They've got some pretty good providers. They've got some exceptional independents. But the participants that we've had over there, they've been on since like before I was a register. They've been on since COVID.
Yep.
So they're not going anywhere, touch wood. And we just go through the motion with those ladies and gents, and we just continue doing the good work that we do. But I mean, that even speaks for itself, being able to have participants who couldn't find providers, who weren't happy with providers, who weren't being heard with providers. 5 years in, still getting the results that they got when it was me providing support. I'm pretty happy with that for them, that they've found their consistency there.
Yep. What
Yeah.
is your big vision for your company for the next couple of years?
The vision grows every day. Look, I think the vision still will intentionally be just building capacity, building resilience, growing skills, new, old, wild. Yeah, and just keeping on just providing that quality that people really, really are craving. Yeah.
And if anyone was looking to join your service as a participant or a staff member, how do they find you?
We have got a website, www.yourbestsupport.com.au. We are on Facebook, Your Best Support. We're on Instagram, Your Best Support, ACT_New South Wales. And my phone number is just everywhere. Or, I mean, email. Email is always good. So
Yep.
Emily@yourbestsupport.com.au. We've got specific referrals for specific
Yep.
programs. Yeah, just get in contact and have the conversation.
Thank you so much for joining the podcast tonight.
No, thank you, Sarah. It's been a blast.